I'm Alan Alai with Trout Unlimited here on the Cape. We're here at Alberto's Restaurant in Hyannis for our annual banquet. Trout Unlimited is an organization that protects cold water fisheries and habitats, not just for trout, but other fish species as well. Today we have Chris Wood from our national president, Chris Wood, who is the CEO and president of Trout Unlimited. We have anglers, we have conservationists, environmentalists joining us today for an auspicious occasion to commemorate our 50th year as a chapter, and we hope that we have 50 more.
So at Trout Unlimited, my role in the organization is to support our network of 400 chapters and councils across the country, including the Cape Cod chapter and the Massachusetts Council, in bringing our mission to life on their home waters. Here in Cape Cod, obviously, you have decades-long history of people rolling up their sleeves and getting their hands dirty and their waders wet to take care of the rivers in their own backyard. And our job is to make sure that they can succeed in that mission, that they can build community around these really critical resources. I had the pleasure this morning of going out on the Quashnet for a walk because it's such a beautiful day, and was able to stop and see a few spots where the brook trout are actually spawning. They're digging their redds to provide the next generation of fish. And they've been doing that obviously for eons here on these spring-fed creeks throughout Cape Cod, but they're more successful, and the populations are healthier thanks to the work of Francis Smith and the Cape Cod chapter and so many other volunteers who have really been out there year over year, month after month in some cases, building the habitat, planting the trees, and caring for and recovering these rivers. We still have a lot of work to go. There's a lot of streams throughout the Cape and southeastern Massachusetts that have undersized culverts that prevent fish migration upstream, that have dams that are preventing those, that creating that barrier for fish passage, or causing warm temperatures in these rivers that really need to stay cold. And so our hope is over time that we can leverage the great work that's been done here and build a much broader community of support around expanding our work for these salter brook trout throughout the Cape and all the way down to Long Island.
I wanted to make sure that I was here for the Cape Cod chapter of Trout Unlimited's banquet, because for nearly 50 years now, they have done incredible work helping to recover rivers such as the Quashnet, which is a river that was basically turned upside down at the turn of the century and turned into a cranberry bog. And for the past 48 years, a combination of this chapter and another one, its predecessor called Southeastern Chapter, have turned it into a vibrant trout fishery. It's just amazing work, and so I wanted to make sure that I was here to celebrate their good work with them. So TU, as I said, it's a national organization. It's got 400 chapters who are spread out all around the country. The Cape Cod is one of those chapters. They were formed in the early 80s. They broke off from another chapter called the Southeastern Chapter, and since then they've done just incredible work, not only helping to recover rivers such as the Quashnet, but they do amazing work with veterans. They do amazing work with kids. For 26 years, they've hosted a youth camp where they get kids into the outdoors and teach them about conservation. So it's just an exemplary organization, and it's an honor to be here to represent them.
I would like to tell a very brief story about a land acquisition that took place in 1987, which actually began in 1985. Our state representative, Tom Cahere, received a call from members of the Cape Cod chapter of Trout Unlimited, and they asked him if he could put a bill through the state legislature asking for $10.1 million to purchase 460 acres of land on the Quashnet River. And Tom was all in favor of doing such a thing. And that particular piece of land surrounds an area that we had been working on to restore the stream for some 10 years, beginning some 10 years previous. The bill was submitted to the state legislature. It made its way through the House and subsequently made its way through the Senate, where $9 million was appropriated out of the $10.1 million. And I got a call from Matt Patrick, who's a former state representative, and Matt said to me, we need to get to work. We got to find $10.1 million. And I said to Matt, I said, okay. I said, I got an idea. And he said, you know where to get $1.1 million? And I said, I think so. So I called Mass Fish and Wildlife and asked to have an appointment with the State Board of Governors. And they received us fairly warmly, and we made our case. We were told by the real estate person that worked for Mass Fish and Wildlife that we should remain on the site outside the building because they were going to vote on this particular issue right then and there. And so Matt and I went outside, and it had been previously raining and pouring, and the rain had stopped, and we stood out just beyond the door a little ways for about 10 minutes or so, and Bill Miner, who was the real estate person, came out and announced to us that we were going to get the $1.1 million needed to seal the deal for the purchase of the land. And of course, Matt and I were absolutely elated by that. The land was subsequently purchased after appraisals met the criteria required by the state, and today that piece of property has nearly tripled in size because it abuts land owned by the Falmouth Rod and Gun Club and the Falmouth Beagle Club and the town of Mashpee and various other parcels that were purchased by the various state agencies. It is co-managed by Mass Wildlife and by the Department of Conservation and Recreation, and it is a state forest. It's a beautiful place, and through the middle of it flows the Quashnet River, which is now absolutely full of sea-run brook trout.
Welcome members, guests, and friends of Cape Cod Trout Unlimited. My name is Alan Alai. I'm president of the chapter. I know a lot of you have come a long way and a distance to get here, and I really appreciate your coming here today. This event is just one of the events that our chapter holds. You know, I think in the last 2 years we've posted or hosted over 60 events on the Cape and in Massachusetts. So, and we've done that by design, and we've made a concerted effort to bring the Trout Unlimited's mission and message to protect cold water fisheries to our community and by hosting these events. An example of that, you know, Bob Lewis, you know, has been, you know, working very hard to host these fly fishing film festivals at the Chatham Orpheum. And if you've been to those, you know how great those shows are. They bring out a lot of people, a couple hundred people. 100 people will show. It's a great program. We've also made an effort to make ourselves more accessible to the Cape by moving to Cape Cod Community College for our member meetings. These are our monthly member meetings, and you know, we've hosted some incredible speakers, some experts in, you know, saltwater fishing and freshwater fishing. We've hosted scientists and ichthyologists to come to our chapter meetings to discuss conservation and best practices. And I hope everybody, at the last one, I hope everybody learned something at the last meeting. Everybody's hopefully nodding their head. And I guess by my count, you know, we've probably polished off, you know, over 500 slices of pizza. You know, so a success by anybody's count. Okay, so if you're one of the lucky ones to have joined us on some of our extraordinary on-the-water fishing events, whether it's on the shore fishing for stripers or going down the Deerfield River, you know, going after that large brown trout, you know, you were those events, you know, had an incredible draw. We had 8 events this year. Some of those float trips, we doubled up the size and the number of people that could participate those, and we hope to do those in the future as well. Traditionally, we have held this fly fishing school each year at Peters Pond, and we will continue to do that. And this spring, it'll be the 38th school session. So imagine, 25 plus people going to school for 38 years. So you can do the math.
40th anniversary.
40th anniversary.
Remind everyone that. We discovered that this year.
Yeah, 40th. Is it 40th for TU, Cape Cod TU?
1984,
1984. Okay. I knew that was going to come up. Each session, the fly has been a success, great success due to the many volunteers, which are considered world-class casting instructors, which I would consider world-class casting instructors. In the last 2 years, we've broken some from tradition a little bit and tried to venture out and do some casting clinics in Chatham. We've done a number of those casting clinics, and over half of those have been introductory casting clinics. And also we've done some introductory fly tying classes, and these were intended for women only, largely funded by the Carrie Russell Grant. As far as restoration goes, under Fran, are you still there? Fran Smith's management, our Quashnet River Restoration Program this year has logged over 539 volunteer hours on the river. And, we've done, you might be familiar, we've done tree planting. We planted 100 swamp white oaks. Fran, and they're all thriving and doing well?
They all have acorns.
They all and the deer, are they doing well too with those acorns?
They're doing just fine.
Okay, all right. Not only that, we've put in woody debris, and we put in some spawning boxes and improved the habitat for those fish on the Quashnet River. In addition, we've also supported mass wildlife by purchasing the pit tags that are used to track and record the movement and the activity of Salter Brook trout. So this year's big news, and I don't know if you saw the Fresh Brook Restoration Board over here. In September, the board approved a proposal that was put together by Peter Schilling, and he's over here. He's our Conservation and Environment Chair, to contribute $15,000 to the Fresh Brook Restoration Project. So this is just starter money, kind of seed money to get this program going, and this is in partnership with the National Park Service. Our goal, our hope, is to bring Salter Brook back to Fresh Brook, and I know we can do it with CCTU's commitment and involvement. Okay, at this time, I'd like to recognize our board members, and if I call your name, if you could stand up so that we can recognize you. Joe Swalek, if you could stand, Joe. Joe, thank you very much. Joe is our board vice president. He's promoted TU at a number of angling associations and organizations on the Cape, as well as volunteered for the fly fishing school and casting clinic and on the water events. Bob, can you stand up? This is our treasurer, Bob. He's greatly... Thank you, Bob. Bob has greatly improved our financial status of the chapter through online auctions, fundraising, and he's coordinated a number of casting clinics, introduction to fly tying events, and member meetings. He's also he's responsible for those fly fish film festivals that you've gone to. So, thank you, Bob. Ed Farrell Starbuck, he's not here. He's our secretary. Thank you, Ed. He's with his congregation today. And I do look. He's new to the board. He's the newest member of the board, and I look forward to Ed's involvement and support. Josh Wrigley, please stand. Thank you. Josh is. You may know Josh. He's a casting instructor. He's been a board member for over 2 years now, and he's also director of our fly fishing school that we hold every year. Kara Hayhurst. Kara is a board member. She's not here today either, and it's unfortunate because we really need to appreciate what Kara's done for us. She's done an incredible job putting together these on-the-water events. She's the one you're talking to about getting a seat in that boat. So, if you really want to get a seat, maybe she's the one to talk to, not me. But she's also So she also is the coordinator of our website, coordinates our website. She's our webmaster, and also does our social media for Instagram and Facebook. And she's our DEI chair as well. Mike Howard, if you could stand. Mike is our past president. He's a membership coordinator, and he's a grant writer. Largely, he's responsible for the Kerry Russell grant, getting that money to us, and helping out with the women's programs. Roberta Schelling, if you could stand, please. Roberta is our Rollcast newsletter editor. She does a phenomenal job, and I really appreciate all the work that you've been doing, Roberta. Thank you. Fran Smith, if you could stand, please. We all know Fran. He's our Quashnet River Restoration Program Manager. He's back from his world tour. Are you back from your world tour, Fran? You're speaking, not yet. Okay, still on tour. Okay. Still on tour at a TU chapter near you. Peter Schilling. Peter, if you could stand again. Peter, thank you very much. Conservation and Environment Chair. Yeah, I called on you twice, Peter. Sorry about that. Well, thank you to the board members, and thank you to all. I look around the room. I see a lot of volunteers who participated in our programs, in our on the water events, our fly tying events, our casting events. Thank you very much, and please give everybody in this room a round of applause because they deserve it. At this time, you probably guessed I'm not Chris Wood. So at this time, it's my honor to introduce Chris Wood, President and CEO of Trout Unlimited. Chris is passionate about ensuring clean, healthy waterways for future generations and the fish and wildlife that depend on them. His leadership continues to shape the direction of Trout Unlimited's mission, emphasizing collaboration and commitment to science-driven conservation. Please join me in giving Chris a warm welcome.
It's really an honor for me to be here. Alan, thank you, and the rest of the board, thank you for inviting me to be here. There's a, a bunch of royalty in the room that I want to recognize. Peter was acknowledged. We've talked about Alan already. Zig is here, of snail darter fame, who 1978, almost single-handedly with students, managed to stop the God Squad from being invoked and protecting the snail darter, and has since been a great friend of Trout Unlimited and someone whose counsel I depend on. We've got other great people here. I didn't know I was seated next to Tom Perot. Tom is he's done many things since then, but back in the day, he was the editor of Trout Magazine, and before I worked at TU, I used to look forward to getting the magazine. I would read it from cover to cover. Tom, I still do that, just so you know. Anyway, there's many more that I could recognize. I see Glenn is here. Glenn's our Rhode Island 225 chapter. I remember, I think I spoke at your banquet 5 years ago, and the Rhode Island TU chapter was at war with an organization that splintered off from TU called Protect Rhode Island Brook Trout. And I remember telling them when we were at this banquet that look around you, because all of the people in the state of Rhode Island who care about brook trout are here. It doesn't make any sense for us to be battling with each other. And since then, Glenn has done a remarkable job. He's raised over, I think, $1 million to do brook trout restoration, and has frankly been a real leader in getting that chapter, which had historically participated in stocking in some, priority waters like the Wood River, to not only stop doing that, but to actually take a position opposing it. So, Glenn, thank you for your leadership. Yes. Todd, the famous fish wrap writer, is next to him too, made the trip from Rhode Island. Anyway, it's just great to be with so many friends and heroes of mine. What I often do with these talks is I will talk about the work of the chapter in the context of our core values as an organization. And I love our core values. We're like the old Soviet Union. Every 5 years, we do a strategic plan, hopefully to greater effect than they. And we always revisit our values and our vision and our mission. And this year, for the first time ever, we actually identified the core beliefs of Trout Unlimited. And so these are we believe statements. And as I was reflecting on the work of this chapter, I thought, I'm not sure that there's a chapter that better embodies those core beliefs than the Cape Cod chapter of Trout Unlimited. And so, yeah, please. So the first core belief of the organization, and this is something we had never done before a few years ago, but was that we believe in the value of hard work, that if people roll up their sleeves, there's no end to the amount of good that they can do. And if there's a better example of that, and I know I do this a lot, right? I told Rhode Island 225 they were my favorite chapter. Tell the guys out west they're my favorite chapter. But I'm serious, if there is ever a better demonstration of believing in the value of hard work than what's been accomplished on the Quashnet, I've never seen it in Trout Unlimited. This is a river that was dead, D-E-A-D, dead. That was risky for me. Halfway through there, I was like, is it D-E-E-D? But it's just amazing. And, you know, we celebrated Fran. We gave him our highest volunteer award. And I remember I came out here with Alan, I think it was June of 23. And I had never, I used to fish the Cape all the time. I fished the Brewster Flats I was a wide receiver in college and my roommate was a tight end. And so we would come and fish at his dad's place all the time. But I had never heard of the Quashnet. And I never really knew much about what the Cape Cod chapter did. And I was absolutely blown away when I learned that you all have planted over 5,000 trees. You've got nearly 30,000 volunteer hours into that river system. 5,000 volunteers have participated in work in that area. And this was a dead system. And I remember, everybody was telling me about this guy, Fran Smith, who I hadn't met yet. But this is a collective effort. Fran's no hero, and he's the first one to, well, he is a hero, but he's the first one to extend the credit to everyone else. But I remember going back, and I saw Jeff and Beverly at one of our meetings. It might have been the annual meeting, and I said, how the hell did I never hear of this chapter or that guy? Because I wanted to find someone to give the Mortensen Award to, and Jeff said, well, because he never complains. It's the squeaky wheels that get all the grease at Trout Unlimited. But it's true. I've never seen a deeper commitment to a single river by a chapter than this chapter's commitment to the Quashnet, and it is inspiring. The second belief that we believe in at Trout Unlimited is we believe in community and the power of people to get things done. And one of the areas that we went to when I was here on my tour with Alan was we went and looked at the Childs River in Falmouth. And I know Falmouth well. I used to date a girl from there. And I had no idea that there could be brook trout in the Falmouth. This is a river system that up until a few years ago, every July, the water temperature would be about 80, which is, as you all know, is inhospitable for trout. And as a result, there were no trout there. And based on the restoration that was done in the Falmouth, they've now got water temperatures that are down in the 60s, low 60s in July, and they've got naturally reproducing brook trout there. And it's incredibly inspiring to think that here in Falmouth we can do that. I mean, if we can recover brook trout in a place like Falmouth, there's no end to where we can extend that work. The final core belief that we have as an organization is we believe in the wisdom of nature, and that we believe that conservation is an ethical obligation. And I remember when we were working on this, I thought, that one's a little woo-woo. But there is no better demonstration of that than what happened at Red Brook when the town of Wareham, I guess they don't call him a mayor, it's an administrator, had said, yeah, I want to support this development. They were going to build a casino and a dog racing track and a bunch of other crap in the headwaters of Red Brook. This is an area where TU as an organization has spent more than $4 million over the years to recover salter brook trout. And they wanted to build this big development. 4 of the 5 town selectmen approved it. The administrator or the mayor approved it. And somehow we convinced them to take it to a vote of the people. And Southeastern chapter at TU, the Massachusetts Council, the Cape Cod chapter, everybody turned out. And by God, we beat that idea by a score of 7-1. 860 people voted against it, and only 130 voted for it. And you know what? If that development had been approved, it wouldn't have been covered in the Boston Globe. It wouldn't have been covered by WBUR. It wouldn't have been covered by Fox. Nobody would have cared. But you all showed up, and you beat that thing back, and that proves that when we get together and we unite in common cause, that we can stop bad ideas from happening and protect our investments in conservation. All of which gets me to Freshbrook. Peter was just showing me this Freshbrook poster over here and telling me a little bit about the project. And one of the cool things about this project is we would reconnect the freshwater system in the headwaters down to the saltwater system for the first time in 100 years. And the implications for salters are obvious, right? Because this area that has been largely bereft of brook trout will have brook trout reintroduced from places like the Quashnet. And we'll be able to again have salters, brook trout manifesting their full life history as salter brook trout. But that's only a piece of the benefits that will come from that project. It will also help the oyster fishermen in the bay. It will also help the eelgrass to come back, which is now, it's nutrifying because it's too much salt water. And so because of the way that you all demonstrate our core beliefs as an organization, I have every confidence that in a few years, once we've taken out that dam, once we've removed those 2 perched culverts or undersized culverts going under Route 6, we'll be able to celebrate Freshbrook just in the same way that we've been able to celebrate places like Red Brook and the Quashnet and the Childs. So I want to leave with 2 ideas. One is I couldn't decide if this was a strategic idea or a tactical idea, but let's just say it's one of those 2. And when you look at these river systems that I've just been talking about, that you're also familiar with, rivers like the Quashnet and Freshbrook and Red Brook, it seems to me that there's a case to be made to the state of Massachusetts, to agencies like the Fish and Wildlife Service, to other chapters in the region, to the national organization, to other funders, to donors, that we should be marching up and down the coast from here north up to Maine, helping to protect and reconnect and restore these awesome salter streams. Because if we can recover salters in places like this down here, there's no reason that we can't recover them all the way up and down the coast. And so that's something that I'm really committed to trying to make a priority in the coming years. And I know the chapter already has. You all have led the way in that regard. And what I'm thinking about when I think about this program is maybe 15 years ago, I was approached by a bunch of grassroots at an annual meeting, and they were from this so-called driftless area. This is the unglaciated region of Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and Illinois. And what happened was when the last glaciers receded, they just bypassed this area. And so it's almost Vermont-like in terms of what it looks like. But it also was the heart of the agricultural revolution. It's this black earth country. And the downcutting, because of historic agricultural practices, was profound. There was these epic photographs of, a person on horseback standing on the horse on a bank, and literally like 150 feet below is the downcutting that has occurred. Because with the black earth streams, the bedrock is so low that it just, as erosion occurs, it just downcuts and downcuts and downcuts. And then the banks erode and they erode, and all the fisheries get ruined, all the downstream water quality gets ruined, and so on. But these local chapters had approached me and they said, look, we've been doing these discrete projects to help recover driftless area fisheries, and we want to turn that into something bigger. And they came up with a great idea, and we supported it, and we went out and fundraised, and we hired a couple staff. And in 15 years, we've recovered 400 freaking miles of driftless area rivers and streams. And let me tell you what that means in the driftless. Then you can applaud. In the driftless, pre-restoration, you get 100 to 200 fish per mile. Post-restoration, it's a tenfold increase. 1 year later, it's 1,000 to 2,000 fish per mile. And think about the benefits of downstream water quality, You're helping communities downstream to reduce their water filtration costs. You're helping farmers to stop losing their land. We've also incidentally opened up about 200 miles of what were historically private waters to become public access waters in that same driftless area. And there's no reason we can't replicate the same thing for salters. And you're all leading the way already. This is just something we have to figure out how to take to scale. And so there's a bigger idea that I want to leave you with. You know, you may not have heard, but we just had a very divisive election. And that's not uncommon. I mean, everybody says every election is the most divisive election, but elections have always been divisive in America. But I'm not sure that America has ever been as disconnected as they are today. And I'm not sure if we've ever had a time when our elected leaders have so defined themselves and their parties by their differences rather than what unite us as a nation. That may be unique in this period of time. And I'm not going to suggest that Trout Unlimited is the antidote to what's broken about our politics, but hear me out. One of the things that I think makes us unique as an organization is that most of us, this is show of hands, unfortunate partners who have been dragged here, Alan's wife may count in this, raise your hands if you're an angler. So the majority of people who are here, and I'm sorry for you. But, you know, conservation's a hard game, right? Basically, and some of you have heard me say this before, but essentially what we're doing as conservationists is we're overseeing loss, whether it's loss of open space or wetlands or endangered species or water quality, forest cover. We oversee loss. And it is really difficult not to become disconsolate or negative or defeatist in the face of that. I have been a Mets fan for my entire life. I am also a Commanders fan. I know of what I speak. We're turning the corner this year with the Commanders, I think. But one of the great things about TU is because I think we are all anglers, we are also optimists. We are inveterate optimists. And fly anglers, we take that to a wholly different level. You know, we gladly, willingly stand in these rivers that are typically, by definition, cold, often in really cold weather, and we cast these combinations of feather and fur and wire at river ghosts. And there's not one among us who isn't absolutely confident that on the last cast of the day, we'll catch our biggest fish of the day, which is why we're invariably late for dinner. We take that same sense of optimism to conservation. And so where many of our colleague organizations become almost defeatist in their tone, we bring this sense of optimism. And when you think about it, there is nothing more optimistic, there's nothing more affirmative, there's nothing more forward-looking than the work that you've all done on the QuashNet. The idea that we can take specific actions today to make the world a better place for our kids tomorrow. It's the most uniquely American, forward-looking, optimistic idea that we've ever introduced to the world. And the fact is that whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, there's none among us who don't want to make the world a better place for their kids. And so my commitment is that I want to take back to Washington what you've all taught me in real life about our ethical obligation to conservation and our ethical obligation to our communities and our commitment to hard work. And we will try to impart that across the organization. But you've already shown the way here. And so my request of you is just keep doing what you're doing. And please know how much I appreciate all of what you've done for TU and all of what you will do in the future. And I really look forward to coming back in a few years and learning about all the great stuff that's going to continue to happen on the QuashNet, but especially Fresh Grip.